Hello guys, so we are now in Dubai at Token 2049 and here with you Anna Tutova, co-founder of Coins and our guest who was actually previously on our channel too, Santiago Santos, who is ex-Parafai partner and currently he's as well angel investor and runs his own family office funds and have been for quite a while in the industry. Great to have you here, Santiago.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like a dinosaur coming to these conferences. You know, it's like, first of all, the size of these conferences has grown so much. I still remember my first conference in New York. It was like a small meetup in 2012, and it felt it was very different than what you see here. This is like a spectacle in many ways. So yeah, thank you for having me again.
Yeah, but actually you didn't come out to the conferences in person that much.
Yeah. I don't usually go to conferences that much, but you know, I think what makes it exciting here is Dubai's become sort of a crypto hub. And it's good to come out here and meet so many of the founders that I've invested in, and they're all here. So it's a very thriving ecosystem, I think, especially in Dubai. You know, it's become kind of like one of the main crypto hubs.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And what did you see the value of crypto and Bitcoin at that time?
I think the value of crypto is that it is a fantastic way to coordinate. As human species, we're social, and so coordination is incredible. So like if you look at history, the biggest milestones in human development have been technology that allows better coordination. So think about inventing forms of writing. Whenever you write, you can communicate better, so that improves coordination. Then you had the printing press, allowed you to distribute information very easily, so that improves coordination if everyone has the same information, the same book. Then the internet, obviously the telephone, the radio, and so the internet sort of like took that to a whole new level where all of a sudden you can connect to anyone in the world. News spreads much faster. All of these defining moments in human history have been better coordination. And crypto is an extension of that in the way that, you know, it enables exactly what the internet does, but with value. Like you're transmitting value, not just information. And I appreciate there's value in information, but now you can transmit money through the internet. And that is a very powerful unlock in coordination, right? Because if you're not transacting value, then people lose attention. And that's why, you know, crypto in and of itself is such a powerful piece of technology, because it improves coordination in a way that has never been possible before without trusting a central middleman. And that has a huge unlock when you think about all the different possibilities that will enable. So that's what honestly has kept me in the space. But now you have stuff like Helium, right? When you can tell people, hey, listen, you can have a data plan that's a fraction of the cost, and it has better coverage maybe at times, and people can relate to that. And so I think crypto is going through a very interesting transition now, which makes it all the more exciting, where finally we're entering kind of the consumer application phase.
And you came from traditional finance background, you worked at JP Morgan, yeah?
JP Morgan, investment banking, then I worked at a venture fund called SageView Capital. And then I left because they didn't want to invest in crypto, even though I pounded the table. I went around, talked to Sequoia, talked to all the major funds. It was like, no, this was 2014, 2015. No one wanted to invest in crypto. So I was just an angel investor kind of by night. I ended up leaving SageView and then joined Parafai early on. And we were, you know, investors in, the core strategy was DeFi, but that was kind of before kind of becoming what I am now.
So now all these institutional investors are finally investing into crypto, into digital assets. We see approval of Bitcoin spot ETF in the US. We see approval in Hong Kong for Bitcoin as a zero spot ETFs. So how do you see the current state of institutional adoption of crypto, and how do you see the involvement, and don't you think that it may be somehow monopolized by institutional investors?
Well, the last part, I don't think so. I think there's always fear that crypto will be co-opted and lose its core value, but I actually don't think so. In many ways, it's actually not possible. I mean, there's always a tendency to centralize, like if you look at distribution of nodes and miners, like there's always some degree of centralization, but I think the core value of crypto is very powerful. So I think it's very encouraging to see institutions get excited. You know, you've been hearing it or I've been hearing it for the last 4 or 5 years. A lot of banks, a lot of institutions would tell you, hey, we're very excited about what this technology can mean for our business, because we can save money, we can, scale our business, we can, do things faster, better, cheaper. But come back to us when there's better regulatory clarity. Come back to us when there's more positive sentiment on the space. And I think something like the ETF really comes and legitimizes this as an actual asset class. And that is probably one of the most defining turning points of this industry.
And as well, we have just halved few days away. So what I thought was we will have immediate pump, or was it Bitcoin will go down?
I don't think anyone can predict markets. Historically, Bitcoin halvings haven't been priced in. Historically, the price has gone up after a Bitcoin halving, even though everyone knows exactly when it's going to happen. But the usual things: miner consolidation, certain miners become more profitable, some don't and have to close shop. But it's predicting the market is something that I don't try to do. I try to focus on the present. I can't tell you what prices are going to do in a second, in 5 minutes, much less so in after the halving. But I think long term, I am more excited less about the halving, more so what's happening in Bitcoin generally. If you look at in the last couple of weeks, I've announced 2 investments in L2s and even an L1, just trying to bring more functionality to Bitcoin, which is something that has been overlooked, I think, historically. I mean, certainly you have Stacks and other companies trying to build more functionality, but I mean, it's still the largest crypto asset, and it's very encouraging what you're seeing after the Taproot update, bringing more functionality to Bitcoin. And some ordinals, right, has been explosive for Bitcoin, just in terms of interest, but also tapping into this idle pool of capital. The biggest concern that I've had with Bitcoin for many years is how do you sustain a security budget when 97% of all fees are coming from block rewards that are going to go down over time? You don't have that problem in a network like Ethereum or Solana that have just the bulk of it is fee revenue, right? And so this idea of just holding a pet rock is not compelling enough. But when you have more activity on the Bitcoin network through ordinals or through DeFi in an L2, I actually get really excited because you're tapping into huge pools of unproductive capital, a lot of purchasing power from those Bitcoin holders, and much more fee revenue to miners. And so that all of that is, I think, really interesting for Bitcoin. So I'm very excited what's happening there.
Yeah, so why are you so bullish on Bitcoin applications?
I mean, it's hard not to be in crypto and not be bullish on Bitcoin, or at least understand its importance and significance. What you're seeing with ordinals is incredibly exciting, right? I mean, in many ways, the purchasing power, I'll give you an example. 2 out of the 3 largest NFT collections are now on Bitcoin. And there's a reason for that. I mean, there's just so much more money in the Bitcoin ecosystem that hasn't had the possibility to actually spend and use Bitcoin. And now they do through ordinals, right? And so when you think about the larger NFT collections in Ethereum, like CryptoPunks or Bored Apes or whatever, or in Solana, I mean, the aggregate size of Bitcoin is just, and the market size is just massive. It's just an order of magnitude or 3 or 2 larger than any other ecosystem. And so it's really encouraging to see that level of activity happening in Bitcoin.
And as well, can you share some companies you thought you invested into the companies?
So the 2, look, none of this is financial advice. There are many others. I'll talk about the 2 ones that I mentioned that I just invested. It's Meso, which is built by the Thesis team that built Keep, that built TBTC. So this is the team that when I was at Parify, invested in, because it's a studio that has been very focused on building around the Bitcoin ecosystem for many years. And so they just launched Meso, which is building, they call it an economic layer in Bitcoin, which is an L2 that is trying to bring more functionality, like a thriving DeFi ecosystem. So they've been very good as a studio to incubate really good projects. And so I'm excited to see what they come up with. And the projects that build around Meso. The second one is Arch Network, which is actually not an L2, but an L1. So natively, they're building in the L1, kind of like a side chain with parallelization. So think of it like some components of Monad or Solana in Bitcoin L1. So there's always some degree of trust that you are giving up. There's some continuum of trust. Whenever you look at a Bitcoin L2 or even a side, there's always some component of trust that degrades, right? So there's probably a subset of really hardcore Bitcoiners that don't believe or ever will do anything other than the Bitcoin, they just hold it. But I think there's a larger market that will want to use their Bitcoin, will appreciate DeFi applications, and I'm hopeful that those might happen in Meso or Arch or some of the other ones like, Stacks or Babylon or whatever. Like there's many companies that are building in the Bitcoin ecosystem, which actually wasn't the case for many years. It just felt like a dormant ecosystem.
And with the ordinals, there was this well complaint, like the fees for Bitcoin transactions went quite up. So do you think it's sustainable to have ordinals on Bitcoin?
I mean, when you talk about is it sustainable, I think you're getting at like how big is the market for that? How many users can actually support and pay these high fees? I think it's an interesting question. I think the market is limited in that capacity, but therefore in L2 or a sidechain, right, where you have lower fees. In many ways, every network goes through this growing problem, right? You have really cheap fees at the beginning because there's no one that wants to do anything in the chain, and then you have an influx of users, and then you have a spike in fees in the L1, and then you build an L2, and now some networks like Ethereum are building an L3, and so maybe Solana built in L2s, and so I think like every network, like telephone networks, think about the traffic that you're seeing here in Dubai. I mean, it ultimately comes down to like, how do you solve for the hotspot problem where you have spikes in supply, like in demand? And I think there's some really interesting technology that people don't necessarily appreciate, how crypto is really at the cutting edge of not just cryptography, but also like networks and, balancing out the load and like the spike in activity, like with hotspots. And so most crypto networks still need to optimize fees. When you think about like Solana and the recent degradation that you've had, like fee markets are not perfect. There could be further optimization, as there will have to be further optimization how you price the consumption of blockchain space, like block space, in any network. Categorically, fees are either really underpriced or overpriced or suboptimally priced. And that's an area of research that I'm actually really focused on, like introducing like just more efficiency in the pricing schemes of block space.
And as well, do you hold yourself any ordinals?
I do, yeah.
What collections do you have?
Pups. It's actually the only one. I've looked at others, but that to me felt like pretty interesting.
And you're as well holding NFTs for quite a while. You have a CryptoPunk, so what do you see generally the value of NFTs?
I think NFTs like are really powerful because they have a lot of emotional cachet. Like when you collect a token, like a random ERC token, a fungible token, it's kind of like holding paper currency. It's not that gives that value, it's what you can do with it. And in many ways, like NFTs are that extension where they have an emotional cachet, they have the community element, they have the collectability component of it, and so the provenance of it too, like you can buy NFTs that have been owned by other people, and so you can always trace it in the blockchain. Yeah, NFTs are really, and they can be displayed by everyone, right? A lot of times when you buy art, a lot of the art collections of like ancient art are held in private collections, so it's not accessible to the public. And the beauty about a digital art is that it can be accessed by anyone. And I think over time, NFTs will become more and more interesting for their provenance, for their significance in internet culture. Also, I think NFTs will become more of a mindset of abundance, not scarcity. Most NFT collections have been around this kind of memeability of there's only 10,000 of them, so they have value. Whereas I think
10,000 is actually quite a lot.
Quite a lot, yes. Some have much less, right? And so I think over time, I'm really excited to see artists, games, projects, brands experiment with like infinite collection, right? If we really want to onboard billions of users, well, it's not probably going to be, like certainly the collections that have 10,000 may be really rare, like a Monet or Picasso, but it's really the projects, the brands that might issue NFTs every time you go to the store, every time you go to a concert, every time you listen to a song, like you get NFTs. And so I think NFTs remind us constantly why blockchains are very powerful, because they're an immutable record of time and space. So Anna, if you really liked an artist in your hometown in Ukraine, for instance, and no one ever knew of, or say you liked Taylor Swift before Taylor Swift was like this huge phenomenon, well, you could have probably gotten, like if Taylor Swift was getting started today and she issued an NFT when she was getting started in Nashville when she was no one, imagine you holding that one of the first rare NFTs. It may have a lot of value, it may not. It will have a lot of significant value because you can trace that. You can say, hey, I really enjoyed this, and there's a timestamp of what you were doing and it's recorded, and no one can change that record. And that's really powerful. Like you're encapsulating these moments of historical significance. It could be to you, it could be to the world. And ultimately that's what NFTs are and why they make them so powerful instruments.
And as well with both NFTs and different coins, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a bunch of altcoins, you need to time the market and you need to fix the profits. So when do you think we will have the highest point of the bull market? When do you need to fix your profits? What's your investment strategy?
I'm thinking of the scene in The Big Short, that movie where like people go to a conference and they see all this exuberance and people like flashing money around. They're like, sell everything. I don't think we're there yet. It's very exciting to see so many people show up. I'm of the mind that time in the market will beat timing the market. So no matter what point you discover crypto, I think we could probably all agree that we still haven't seen mainstream adoption, but it's getting closer. We're getting more interesting applications that maybe your mom and dad, your friends that have been skeptical for so many years will finally start using, maybe without understanding that they're using crypto. And so I would question everyone that says that crypto is late. I don't think that I've never met an investor that has been able to time markets perfectly. But I do think that if you have long-term conviction, then the best thing is to just take the long-term view, that this is like perhaps one of the most defining transformational pieces of technology on par with like AI. And crypto really fits in just broadly the innovation. It's just sort of an extension of the internet. It makes the internet much more powerful. And so I think we would be dumb to think that this is over and we're going to stop innovating. As I said earlier, I think I'm earlier in crypto today than I was back in 2012. And so, I don't know. I can't time the market, but I do think I'm very early still. And so taking a 5, 10, 20 long-term view, I think this is why I'm here. This is why I dedicate my career to crypto, because I think this is one of the most important socioeconomic transformations of our time.
And do you think this bull market will last like 1, 2, or 3 years?
Depends on so many things, right? Because as a professional investor, I never invested through an environment where rates are high. And I was mindful of that in 2021. Like I've never invested in my professional career in an environment where rates are high. But I think when you look at like waves of technological innovation, like the internet went through, there was like geopolitical conflicts, there was rising rates, there was low rates. I think ultimately what you need to understand and what I focus on is this technology like transformational? Is it 10 times better than the existing solutions? Is it faster? Is it better? Is it cheaper? Do I believe in a state of the world where crypto makes payments better, the financial industry better, media and entertainment better? Absolutely. And so I think what I think of it is it's a secular technological trend that, yes, there's of course noise and things you can't control, but I think this technology is not going away. I think it has, as the days go by, less existential risk. Like Bitcoin in 2012, yeah, it had existential risk. Today, much less so, right? And crypto now with the ETF, it's actually recognized as an asset class. That wasn't the case 6 years ago, wasn't the case 3 years ago. So, of course, you can pay attention to certain cues, right? How much leverage is in the system, how quickly, prices rise. I mean, there's always froth, there's always speculation, manias, like in any market. And so it's important to be mindful of what those signals are. But generally speaking, yeah, I'm very optimistic about the rest of the year. Geopolitical conflict, persistently high interest rates also matter. But again, my best, and I don't pretend to give advice, I don't pretend to give any sort of recommendations, but I think it would be a disservice to be investing in crypto and using leverage, because leverage probably handicaps and decreases your probability of surviving. Whereas if you don't use leverage, then you could probably just sit in spot and invest in the things that you're comfortable losing. These are sort of like common advice, and because you never want to, like, if you're here, you're early, it's really exciting. Why do something that might put you in a position where you might lose all your money? Focus on security, focus on making sure you have a trusted setup. And if you're using leverage, then you're kind of putting yourself in a position where you might get liquidated. Like crypto is always going to have volatility. It's always going to be crazier than you probably think. So take a long-term view.
And I I watched your podcast where you talked about your mistakes,
yeah.
etc., like selling too early or like Luna stuff. So how did your investment strategy change within the years? And like, do you have a strategy, like for example, if the asset doubles or triples, or like
Yeah.
what price targets you have, then like you sell part?
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks for watching that. I think a lot of people like remember me for that, and I think it's important to talk about our mistakes. I made a lot in my investing career, not just in crypto. I think systematically, yes. After I do, like, I invest. My strategy is multi-strategy. Like, I do invest a lot in early stage. So anytime I have a startup, imagine that I invested at a $10 million valuation, or, you know, after it's done over a 10x, 20x, I take profit. I think for two reasons. One, if I keep doing 5 and 10x's over time, then I remind myself that the kind of this like state where crypto is like abnormally high returns because we're very early. That will not persist. Because if I do even a 2x on every investment I make over and over, I'll be the most successful investor of all time. I don't think it's going to be me, like probabilistically. And the other component is just thinking in probabilities, right? If you made an investment and it's already done, you know, a 10x or more or whatever, and it's already trading at greater than $1 billion, like ask yourself, is it actually worth $1 billion? Like, why should it be worth that? And second, what is the probability of that then doing another 10x? And for me, I rotate a lot of that. So like, if I make a 10x and the project's already worth $1 billion, well, the probability of it being 10 billion is actually much, much lower than me investing in a new company at 10 million, right? With a really good team, with the same fundamentals. And so that's how I think of my strategy. I constantly thinking of opportunity costs and probabilities of where can I optimize my capital. But I'm also mindful, look, I sold Ethereum when I, you know, $3, $1.50. I thought it was genius. And then here we are. And so, again, yeah, it's one of those things where constantly updating your thesis and your models also helps. But also, you know, if you can change your life, change your life.
Do you invest as well into meme coins?
I do, yeah.
So what's generally your opinion on meme coins?
If you had asked me this question 3 years ago, I would have told you, like, super skeptical of meme coins. I thought they were a joke. But now I actually think, one, it doesn't matter what I think. I think the market very clearly likes meme coins. I think it represents the tokenization of culture. And in many ways, like, Bitcoin is the ultimate meme coin, like fixed supply, you know, digital gold, like that's a meme. Everything is a social construct. So again, crypto allows you to tokenize culture, entertainment, and that's a huge industry, right? And so I've taken now, like last year, I really just became more open-minded about meme coins and their significance and importance in onboarding and getting attention. And, you know, who am I to say that meme coins are not the right mechanism to invest in this space or not, right? And so, yeah, my thesis for something like WIF was, like dog with hat, was I think Solana is probably the most retail-focused, most retail-friendly chain. So I'm very excited about what's happening there. And so I think naturally memes will do very well there. The market historically has really liked dog memes, like Doge and Sheep. And so WIF to me just was like, a dog is cute, a dog with hat is cuter. So like it was really just left curving that thesis. And I guess I was quite early on, I was buying it when I was 5 million market cap.
How did you discover it? Just in Twitter?
Yeah, through Twitter, yeah. And then like just the other element of that, it was like, it's really hard to like buy these projects when it's such a small coin, like at 5 million. Like actually buying this thing, I had to buy like $100 increments because it's incredible. So using something like a DCA strategy with Jupiter, which is a fantastic product in Solana, like allowed me to like really build a big position, like by buying like super small increments. The fees were low. I could actually do it. It would have been quite difficult to do it in another, like in Ethereum L1, right? So yeah, I'm very excited about memes. I think also it's important to recognize that most memes actually have really short half-life. Like people talk about it, tokenizing attention. Well, capturing attention is one thing, retaining it is another. And so it's important to like understand most memes will like not survive and persist, right? But I like dogs, so.
What sums do you usually invest into meme coins?
What, sorry?
What sums do you usually invest into meme coins?
The same that I would probably invest in like an early stage startup. Like if I'm not gonna make something at least 1% of my portfolio, then it probably shouldn't be investing in it. So I size them like that. I just think about like portfolio construction. But yeah, memes have become a pretty decent amount of my portfolio.
Can you share some of your meme holdings? What do you have?
Again, none of this is legal financial advice, but as I mentioned, I haven't invested in many, but I do own Doge and I do own Dog with Fat.
Only those ones?
Pups. Pups.
Pups is NFTs.
Well, it's like ordinals, right? So I think of it as the same.
What's your opinion on runes?
Very exciting. I'm tracking it. That's part of the thesis with Pups, right? It will transition into like becoming like the Bitcoin, like the ERC20 and Bitcoin is like really, really interesting. And so like that's part of the thesis for Pups.
And as well, so you benefited from investing into meme coins, or were you racked on any meme coins?
Oh yeah, for sure. I haven't invested in many. I've just been kind of lucky. But yeah, I've certainly lost money. Like it would be like impossible, right? This is why I say most memes will not like survive, right? Probably go to zero. I bought this thing called Slurf when this like it was a meme because the dev really like screwed up the contract and it was like okay, wow.
I think it's still doing fine.
It's like okay, I guess I've lost some money. I think I haven't checked, but I bought like the Costco like $1.50 meme of like the Costco hot dog's already been $1.50, and I think it's done well, but not as well as WIF. So I keep buying WIF. And so yeah, I think now my holdings is mostly WIF actually and Pups. Those are my two largest positions.
Do you think it's still a good time for buying more WIF?
Oh, I can't give that advice. No one knows. Right? It's the market's so unpredictable and rational and volatile. So yeah. Do I believe in it? Yeah, of course. I'm holding it, but yeah.
And I saw some investors as well posting and talking that meme coins this cycle are like analog of NFTs and what was blockchain gaming the previous cycle, and that will be like the main driver of bringing retail investors into crypto. So what are your thoughts on that? And can meme coins evolve into something?
Yeah, I generally agree with that sentiment. I think they've been, something like Dogecoin has historically been huge for community, right? In terms of people that hold Dogecoin. So I think it's no different, right? Now you're seeing it probably at greater scale. So yeah, I do. Look, there's something pure about a meme coin that's been fully distributed. It doesn't have this like difference between circulating and fully diluted market cap. Like all the coins are in circulation. The team is kind of anonymous. It's just sort of like launched it. It's owned by the community, and ultimately, like I think really good communities in crypto get behind these type of things because it's like ICOs, right? But ICOs are no longer a thing now, and so people complain about this kind of VC community discrepancy. Well, meme coins kind of, I can understand why people just turn to meme coins from that component. It's also way easier, more accessible. Like not everyone can buy CryptoPunk, but everyone can buy like a pretty low price meme coin, right? Especially in a chain that has very low fees. And so I think the accessibility component, when you think about buying an NFT versus buying a meme coin, I think the meme coin is just a bit more accessible. So it's probably one of the reasons why it makes it kind of just more attention grabbing.
And what's your current investment thesis? What trends do you see during this cycle? What's the most exciting use cases for you?
Well, I think like one of the more interesting things is decentralized physical infrastructure networks like Helium, or made a few investments in the space. Why? Because it makes crypto very relatable. If you can tell someone their data plan is going to be cheaper, because then they'll use it. They don't care about crypto. They'll just care about, oh, it's cheaper than my current provider. Great, it has great same coverage. Perfect. So I think Deepin is going to be one of those things like email for the internet. Like email made the internet very relatable for people. They all want to communicate. Again, better coordination. I think Deepin is one of those things where it will make crypto mainstream. People might start using these products without realizing it's crypto powered or enabled. So I'm very excited about that. I think there's a place for AI in crypto. I think there's a lot of hype with AI generally, not just in crypto. But I think look, technology can be a very centralizing force, but crypto is probably our only shot to create crypto like AI networks that from a proof verification standpoint of what the model is doing is very interesting. And so I'm spending a lot of time on crypto AI and Deepin.
So what are the synergies between crypto and AI do you see?
So it's really So as an example, Google launched its kind of OpenAI, ChatGPT competitor, Gemini. It's very opinionated. Like I think if you input a query like, what should my diet be of red meat? It will tell you like, oh, you should probably shouldn't eat red meat because there's a lot of bias in the model. So crypto, when you think about blockchains, they are immutable records of information. And you can train models with said information that is tamper resistant. And so the ability to run your model in a pure way, also get the verification that the model is actually doing what you're asking it to do, those two components are really interesting. Crypto also is a very great payments rail. So when there's the IONets, the Akashas of the world allow you to rent GPUs, very easily because you're not restrained by geographical constraints or the payment. It's just you can do it through a stablecoin. I'm more skeptical of that type of application because I think the market is probably smaller than most people think, solving a current constraint of bottlenecks for GPU supply. But I'm very excited about this idea of reinforced human learning. So you take a model like OpenAI and you train it with human feedback. Well, crypto is really good at incentives and getting people to do certain things. And so, when you want to train your model with human feedback, I think a company like MyShell is allowing people to create their own models with human feedback, adding a layer of crypto economic incentives on top of that to improve the model much more so than a Web2 analog. And so I think those are the type of applications where a crypto AI, the model will actually be better than your traditional model Web2. So again, my criteria for investing in these things is it actually 10 times better? Is it faster? Is it better? Is it cheaper across any of these dimensions, right? Because you're always making a trade-off when you're decentralizing. Sometimes it's more expensive, sometimes it's slower, but I think generally we'll probably be able to see better models at scale, probably cheaper, or just with better feedback. And on the verification side, I think those kind of applications might be really powerful for AI.
And can you share as well some of your coin picks?
Oh no, I can't.
You can tell again that it's not financial advice.
No, I mean it's. I like Solana. If that's an altcoin, I generally think there's no reason why Solana shouldn't be worth or be at the scale where Ethereum is. I mean, certainly they have their issues, but I just see a better path for Solana to get mainstream application. I was just at a panel here. We were talking about, consumer applications. And the last question that I encourage the moderator to ask is, where do you see the chain, like probabilistically, which chain would be the one that gets the most amount of retail adoption, mainstream adoption? And unequivocally, everyone said Solana. And second, that was Base, because Coinbase has all these users. But I just think there's something about Solana that I see a line of pathing towards like greater applications at scale. The products in Solana like Jupiter, Tensor, Drip are just fantastic products. And so when I think of my crypto journey, if I were to send someone that wants to learn about crypto, if you ask me which are the 3 applications that I'll send them to, it would probably be, they're all in Solana. And so to me, that was like a realization of like, okay, well, this is a chain that probably feels like it has a ton of potential. So I've been spending a lot of time there.
And in your opinion, what do we need for the mass adoption of crypto?
A couple of things. Better regulatory clarity is still a constraint. Better onboarding, better security, just abstracting away the complexity of interacting with crypto. I also think as a crypto industry, we probably should be more moderated in how we describe the technology. A lot of times we come from it from a defensive angle, right? Someone is critical. You meet someone that is skeptical of crypto, and instead of like taking the time to educate them, just saying, look, this technology is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. It's super early. I think we would all be better if we would be measured and balanced in the way that we describe the potential of the technology, while also saying, look, and recognizing we're not perfect. We're not trying to solve every problem. It's still very early, but it has potential, and encouraging people to use a stablecoin, to interact with go through this journey. Also encouraging people to take the time to learn without necessarily buying something. Because a lot of times I think my frustration with the crypto industry has been someone always wants to sell you something. I'm like, no, like you go back to my mistakes, like take your time. whether it's a year, 6 months. I'm not asking you to buy anything. I'm not asking you to believe in Bitcoin, but I think everyone should take their opportunity to go through this journey, maybe read the Bitcoin Standard, maybe read Chris Dixon's latest book, read Read, Write, Own. And because I think the crypto journey is remarkable in the sense that you really start to question a lot of things that maybe historically you haven't. And if you come out of that believing in a particular cryptocurrency or application, great. If not, then also great, because you'll go back to your normal life and just be more mindful and aware of what gives fiat value, what are the certain trust assumptions that you're making when you're interacting with a particular platform on the internet, thinking about security a bit more. And so I think that's why I'm excited, and really just going back to as we think about closing it, the very opening is in my crypto journey. I hope that everyone can go through that process, because in many ways that was one of the better parts of my entire track record in crypto, is those early moments where you start discovering and be like, oh wow, the world actually doesn't work this way, or why is the sky blue? No one really, and so these are kind of very fundamental things that you start to question. And hopefully in crypto, you just start to become more aware. And I've certainly become a better investor, just because this market is also crazy. It's also early stage venture, hedge fund, so kind of it's a new asset class. And so it's been a great educational journey for me. I think the learning curve is still very steep. It's hard to keep track of this industry. And so it's really exciting, right? And as long as that continues to be the case, I'll be investing, I'll be here, because you actually learn something new every day, and it's more smarter people are joining the space by the day. And so that's really exciting.
Yeah, I agree with you. Thank you for such interesting conversation.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Sharing your learnings and expertise with us.
And always a pleasure. Thank you for having me again. I appreciate it.